And the first thing, we have to be true to ourselves. This is how we begin to find our truth. So in this, I decided, well, you know, I'm from Texas, I'm living in Dallas, see the Dallas Cowboys, I want to be a football player. So I take on that character and I become to be that football player. And I came because we have this ability to, when we put something out in the world, we can create it, we can attach to it, we can build and work to get it. And I did that. I went to every school in the country to recruit me. I chose Texas A&M because I was afraid to go outside of Texas. I played 6 years in New Orleans, became to be all pro. I went to the Houston Texans. My journey began when I got to Jacksonville. In Jacksonville, we were actually playing the Buffalo Bills. Ironically enough, we're in the state of New York. When we were playing the Buffalo Bills, I landed on my back after this particular tackle that I had made a million times. I ended up on my back. I couldn't move. In yoga, we call this posture Shavasana. It's the most vulnerable position you can be, and as a gladiator, I wasn't used to that. In front of 80,000 people watching, millions on television watching, I'm in the most vulnerable position of my life, and I'm freaking out. Not because of my health, because of my ego, my identity that I was attached to. I was diagnosed with spinal contusion. I suffered paralysis for about a month and a half or so. And I learned how to breathe in the hospital. And when the nurse came to me, she talked to me about the breath and conscious breathing. For me, how I was wired is you give me the playbook and let me execute. And the interesting thing enough about that is when you become to know that you can contribute to your healing, well, then you're not the victim anymore. And I held on to that. And I wanted to will myself to be well. And this is why I'm here. This is how I'm here today. Conscious breathing as a tool, processing information, realizing life is going to happen all kinds of ways, but staying resilient in my mind. How powerful are you? How powerful are we? And when we build these tools together, as we're finding even in this concept of chamber of commerce, people coming from all parts of the city, we begin to put our heads together, create a think tank for solving problems, creating solutions, not marinating in the issues, because we're going to constantly, that's just how life presents itself. It presents itself with all kinds of happenings. But what we can do, come together and create solutions, and emphasize solutions. And that's where the magic happens. The unthinkable happens this way. I've seen it. I'm living it. And what's possible for you, it's up to you. It's the limitation that you have in your mind that's going to be your biggest obstacle. But when we choose, the possible, the unthinkable can happen, can show up. This is the beauty of connection. This is the beauty of why we're here and what we can do. So it's great to be here. And I guess we're diving into some of the things with nutrition. And I know Dean mentioned about this. So I went on my journey because, I stayed a month and a half in this paralysis state, and, looking at my life and contemplating it and seeing all the things that they say that you want to aspire to have, the houses, the cars. I probably had 3 houses at that time, 6 cars. I was confined to one room. So I began to contemplate, really, what am I doing? I can't drive the car. I'm in one room. I have someone feeding me. I begin to contemplate, what is this really about, right? And I begin to go on my journey visualizing how I wanted my relationships to be. The dynamic of the relationships with my parents, to myself. I had, in my mind, I felt I loved them, but they didn't know much about me. I didn't know really much about them. You never really had that direct dialogue. And I started to visualize myself going forward. I was like, well, this is the relationships I want to have. So that same idea, I guess, when I was a child, I began to create and visualize my life being well, what it would look like. And I guess as we're transforming out of trauma, it's like that plane that's wanting to take off and fly, because we all have the potential to fly, but we carry the baggage that loads us down. So I began to realize how I can decompress those things out of my mind, because I realized that could possibly hinder my healing. So I began to look at all my life and things like that. And when it comes to health, I found another person, Dr. Sabi. I was looking at a YouTube page and I was like, I saw this video, this one singer, Left Eye, Lisa Left Eye Lopez. And I was like, I need to go meet him. And he's in Honduras. And I was like, I need to go meet him. And, from years of compromising my body, which is very interesting. How many, we got to talk about relationships the other night, but when did you first realize that you had a relationship going with yourself? We tend to think that relationship happens when we meet someone else. But I'm here to tell you and suggest to you an idea that the relationship has been ongoing with you, with yourself. And the relationship that I had with myself, I had constantly put myself in compromised situations. Meaning, as a linebacker, I'm every week in, week out, putting myself in front of 300-pounders, 6'6", something, 300-pounders to run into this brick wall so my body's looking at me like, I don't trust you. You want to be compassionate to me? You want to love me? I don't trust you. And so through my yoga practices, I teach you this relationship building concept. You talk about patience, you talk about compassion. Well, I had to initiate that. I had to establish that with myself. It's a cultivating thing. It's like, people talk about just love. Well, after years, for me, 32 years of not really loving myself consistently, well, that's the kind of love I had. And then ironically enough, we want to try to share that with other people, but that's another lecture. It's another topic. But I began to search out ways I could find my healing. And one of the teachers, like I said, I went to Honduras. And all the years of the collisions, the concussions, I had so many concussions, I lost count. Funny, when people talk about concussions, one time I was on national television, I made a tackle and I went to the other team's sideline and sat on the benches and moved my team on national television. And then that's not even really the hard part. I guess the worst part of that is when I got back to my sideline, they were like, well, how many fingers you have up? And I said 5. And I said, good, get back in there. That's my era anyway. They do something different these days, but so Dr. Sadie introduced me to a concept, and he told me one thing that really changed my life. He's like humans cannot process animal DNA. And coming from Texas, I eat probably 5-6 times a day. And because I was choosing to be well, I listened to that because that stuck to me, that made so much sense logically to me. I went on another path of veganism. And you gotta find your truth, you gotta find your way. But this particular teacher taught me so much about nutrition and why nutrition is so imperative for us. Because we look at the outer aesthetics, we look at but the inner is what's missing. The inner is what's being dictated by what we're fueling ourselves with. The fuel that we put in our bodies is for the elevation. We talk about the high vibration that we want to live, it's going to be dictated by what we injected into our bodies. And then what we're putting, certainly surrounding ourselves with the people around us as well. That contributes as well. So we begin to look at ourselves as a little something different. We actually, in truth, become and be the medicine. It's like, even in a sense, like your smile is alkaline. Your frown is acidic. When I can come and share space with you, I can bring you a nurturing, compassionate feeling that makes you feel good. And I also can leave you and make you feel bad. We are the medicine. We begin to be the solution when we put these things into action, meaning solving problems. When we begin to come together and create solutions to combat the issues. And we have that ability. And it's an amazing journey that we can find ourselves on. And things change, things shift. But we are doing it. In some cases, we kind of like want to sit back. I've had some tremendous opportunities to work throughout, the medical world, and I get to actually, maybe because of my background being a football player, I don't know, but they actually let me go into the hospital room with the primary care physician and prescribe an alternative to the prescription drugs that they're suggesting. And so I see patients come in and out wanting to fill the patient. I see patients coming in and out with an idea that they have this belief that they have to stay on high blood pressure medicine. And I'm suggesting to them if they just do simple inversion, they lay next to a wall, put their feet over their head, their blood pressure will go down naturally. Allow the circulation from the lower extremities of the body to circulate to the upper. And when you stand up, it recycles. You take the pressure off your body to learn to breathe, to understand the liver. The emotion attached to the liver is anger. So if I'm constantly in anger with it, it's going to ultimately blow out my liver. The kidney is fear. The intestines is worry. The heart is grief. The lungs is grief. Again, when we begin to understand ourselves and know how to manipulate ourselves, heal ourselves, and really take that in consideration as a truth, things can happen. I know, and granted, my father's a preacher, so a lot of patients I get to see, they say, well, I'm praying to God, and I understand that dynamic because I grew up in that. So I come to a situation and break it down in patterns. I say, okay, so you have cancer, you have diabetes. Well, let's break down the scenario of your life, and let's see the patterns that you created to get diabetes. And as you create these patterns to get diabetes, we can find a solution in changing those patterns to undo diabetes. And that's on you. And things can work just like that. I've seen it work for myself. I've seen it work for others. I take a retreat actually to Honduras, and I hope I'm not going too over. But I take a retreat to Honduras, and I take people who, one woman had metal toxicity, and the doctors had given up on her. In Beverly Hills, see her sign out there, like, well, we have to sign this stuff because if you die, it's not on us. And in Honduras, we have the thermal waters, we have the different herbs that we use, the alkaline diet that we use, and to see her barely able to walk, and in 5 days, seeing her almost running around this track, in Honduras at Lucia Village. And to see those types of things happen, and not only just see it, also live it. I had a speaking opportunity in Houston, and my mother, so I went to MD Anderson, Mecca, breast cancer. And my mother, I got to go into the room with my mother, and the doctor comes in and says, well, here's the breast augmentator. You have stage 3 breast cancer, and we're suggesting a surgery next week, and this is what we can do. And I asked the doctor, what about an alternative? He says, well, typically when I suggest these types of things, nobody rebuttals this, we just do this. I was like, well, not today. Not today, because we don't talk about this, because this is the person I love. And again, these practices, the breath that we talked about earlier, I'm not suggesting just a hobby. These are practices that we can use in our lives. Nutrition is a practice we can use in our lives. And we can bank on it because it's going to pay dividends. You will see changes. So my mother, she's been on this journey ever since, I went through my journey of paralysis, and she was in the stands, and she went to the hospital. I went to the hospital. She stayed in the hospital as I stayed in the hospital. So we had a bond. And so when the doctor said this, I saw the fear in her eyes, and I know her belief. But I was like, listen, let's go this holistic route. And she trusted. And even in the back of my mind, I was a little surprised that she trusted, because that's when the rubber hits the road. It was game time. But at the end of the day, I also knew what I knew. Dr. Sabi, for years, have been doing this, and the genius of what he had created. I don't know if you know his story, some of you, but he defended himself against the state court and the federal court of the state of New York, and won, proving that he could change cancer. He could do these types of things for HIV, the STDs, and so forth, and he won. Granted, it's not heavily documented in that sense, but he did. And in 3 months, at the age of 60, my mother was delivered from cancer. My mother's a vegan. And from my mother being a vegan, my father, who's a Pentecostal preacher, is a vegan. My sister's a vegan. My cousin's a vegan. I'm working on the whole family. And again, vegan may not be your truth, but it's the idea of healing and what's possible for you. And health is a practicality, because as we see health, it's tangible because we can touch it, we can feel it, and we can see ourselves move and transition from one to the other place. But I like to say is that as just simply as a motivator of seeing ourselves go from one place to the other. But what happens when we put our minds together? We put our minds together to combat what's happening in our societies. What does that shift look like? That's when it gets profound. Thank you so much.
We have a couple of questions to go around the room, and Anne Marie both chime in. We're really fortunate in these chamber mixers. We don't really get the men and women who are teaching our children every day. And I want to give a special big up to Roanoke Elementary School, right? Correct? Give them a round of applause. And is there anybody else here from any of the other public schools here today? Okay, you're the only one, the best one. Here you go. There you go. Roanoke rocks. And so the leadership of that school really said, this is a value base for them to be here. In your practice and what you're talking about today, can you give some recommendations to them to bring back to their coworkers and their children, since they've been able to be here on this day with us where they wouldn't usually be here at all?
Yeah, I think it's great to start the day just with the breath. I mean, did you see how maybe it shifted for you a little bit? Just relax. I mean, to get the kids open to receive the information that you have to present, I think is phenomenal. Just do that, if nothing else. Can be profound. Yoga is something that can kind of exert them and kind of move them around. That's been interesting. I've worked with KIPS. The organization out of LA, and it's been really good for them to just kind of move in a way, get familiar with their bodies. A lot of kids, like 10, 11 years old, can't touch their toes. And I say, well, it's not going to get better than that. We don't work for it, so we got to start working. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And that's just a way to get them motivated about building, creating solutions. I think we have to, as teachers, have to be kind of more savvy or creative in our approach to get them to find that connectedness to them, to see how they can take themselves to another way. But the breath is like a very simple, easy tool, in my opinion. Yeah.
Right. And Anne Marie, you opened up the conversation today, really going in depth in terms of what was happening with your family and your divorce, and often this is a chamber where it's business. Can you maybe go into some more detail in terms of your experience with the chamber and how you kind of help be able to bring more mindfulness to the chamber members or the business community in this time period that you've been together with us?
Yeah, so it boils down again to connection, right? And as simple as it sounds and as simple as it looks, smiling at someone can change everything. We're so guarded as people. If you're open, but it takes work to get open. But the majority have been conditioned to be so closed off that if you say hello to someone, then they're like, what do you want? Or if someone's knocking on your door, you're not going to answer it. How many people know their neighbors? We used to be in a society that everyone knew their neighbor, that would check on their neighbor. We need to bring it back to that. You can't go big if you don't start small. And when people use the term go big or go home, I say, well, I like my home. So we have to start somewhere. And starting with ourselves is the most important thing. And if you can affect one person, that one person will go on and affect one person. And that will affect 10 people. And that's what the chamber did for me. I met Glenn, I met Dean. Keith and Dean happened to know each other. That dynamic then came back to me. Connection is just a powerful thing. And it's all about energy, right? And alignment. So the more open we are, and the more that we start to listen to the push of where we're supposed to go and we need to show up. And I know a lot of you probably have busy lives, no one doesn't. But you took the time to come here today because there was that some knowing in you that I need to go there. And you're walking away with something powerful. So community and chamber is so important. And we need to continue that and grow that and invite people in. Invite people to events like this. Invite people to join the chamber. Because that's where it starts in our communities.
Great, thank you so much. We have about 10 minutes left, and there's not enough time in the week to really give you guys complete justice. I know you guys may have a series of books coming out soon. Do you mind maybe kind of talking about that and when those plan on coming out?
Yes, I'll be part of an anthology book which is anticipated for release on Amazon in May. So we'll be doing some little stuff with that. And Keith has a book coming out. Let him speak more about that.
Yeah, I have a book coming out, the Mindfulness Playbook, and it's kind of metaphorically speaking from sports psychology to transformation of consciousness. So it's a parallel that you can kind of, relate that stressful environment that we live in to the stressful competitive environment of sports. And if we can do it there, how does it look like us doing it here? So, yeah. I have cards, I'd love to share the card.
And when it's coming out.
And when it's coming out, yes.
Your book is coming out. It pre-launch May, anticipated full launch in September, yes. And also you talked a lot, if I can just
Go ahead.
tap in, Usha Village. So I'm hoping, if I don't get to go to the table, I am going because I knew you would want to go. I've been seeing the transformation of Keith himself and the people that he's taken over the years. So if you do one thing today, please go and learn, Google Usha and Dr. Sadie's work. It will change you. Keith is doing a retreat in April, so he'd be happy to speak to anybody at the end. There's still availability in spots, I believe. It will change your life. My injury is permanent. I believe in miracles. I believe I will receive my miracle from my injury. And I know it could be at Usha. And, Keith has been staying with me the last week. He has me on all kinds of herbs and all kinds of stuff. And I'm getting lectured up and down the yazoo, what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right. And it's just like PhD. I got a PhD in social media from Dean yesterday. I mean, it's just like amazing. But again, the power of connection, right? So, learn about Usha Village and what it could do for you. And if you're not on this trip, you'll be on the next trip.
So I'll tell you a really good fun fact. So you're in the front of the house. I purposely stayed back today to watch the group. Half the room took their pen and pencil so quickly to the paper and wrote down every key word, every book release. So again, if you need any other information after the event, there will be an email with survey, their contact information, social media, hashtag, whatever you'd like.
And also this is like a pre-launch to a lot of the work that we will be doing on Long Island. We're going to have a lot of upcoming events, and you can contact Diane regarding any of the events, but Keith will be, I'm not going to say a local, but he will be coming back and forth because there's work to do, and just even the connections that we both have made through connections in this room in the last week have absolutely been mind-blowing and a true gift, and we're so grateful for all of it. So thank you.
I'm going to bring it back to the group right now. Don't clap yet. Oh, you're not done? You're not done yet? You're not done?
That's exciting.
Yeah. One of our great keynotes from 2018. So thanks for coming back and being on the other side of the table. Any questions amongst the group here? I know you'll have some time afterwards to do some one-on-one, but is there any general questions you have just in terms of matters of the heart? I know we kind of went from different directions, but it always